On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. Our story opens with a party, and it's a funny place for a party to occur because you see Jesus had just invited the 12 disciples to follow him on a journey. And the first place they go on this journey, he tells them that this journey, at the end of it, they will get to experience the fullness of his glory. And so the first place they go on this journey is a party, a wedding party, and of all places, Cana of Galilee. So when the wine gave out, and the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Ti imoi kai soe gunai, my hour has not yet come." Now maybe you noticed that part of that was not in English. Some of you may have recognized it as Greek. Ti imoi kai soe gunai. Gunai simply means woman. And it's a respectful term for him to address his mother. The rest of it is a little more confusing. Ti imoi kai soe. It's a Greek idiom that it's used to convey detachment of either one or the other, or both parties, either from a situation or from each other. And so there's several different ways that it can be interpreted and translated, and each English translator has produced it differently from the Greek. I decided that I would save you the confusion by just leaving it in Greek. The phrase or variants of it occurs throughout the Old and New Testaments. And it occurs in one place that I think is very useful to us in 2 Samuel, when King David is dealing with this rebellion that his son Absalom has got together to overthrow his throne. You see, David finds himself in a small town called Bahurim, and he's there, and there's all of a sudden there's a man from Saul's house named Shimei who comes out cursing and throwing stones everywhere, cursing King David. And so one of David's men, Abishai, asks David permission to go slay Shimei, to kill him for cursing the king. And so David says to Abishai, "Ti imoi kai soe," and then something to the effect of, if he is cursing because the Lord told him to, then who are we to say otherwise? In effect, David is trying to draw is trying to say that there's a detachment of both David and Abishai from this curse. And so I think it's appropriate that Jesus used this phrase, and I think he used it in this way. It's obvious, really, when you look at the text, that he says that when she said that there's no wine, Jesus replies that they have no concern with this curse because his hour has not yet come. You might be thinking, well, what is that connection? That Mary's talking about wine, and Jesus says there's no need to worry about a curse. What is the deal here? Well, I didn't tell you, is that to the Jews of Jesus' day, abundance of wine was the sign God had blessed them, and that it was a symbol of God's prosperity and his joy. And so for a wedding to find itself in lacking wine was not just that they had run out of drink and that they were thirsty, but that they had found themselves in this state where there was no joy. And they had found this looming cloud of despair hovering over them. And they could not get it away. And it had removed their blessing so much that you could say that it was a curse. And so Jesus says, "My hour has not yet come." And the hour he's referring to is the end of his journey, when he will reveal the fullness of his glory. But since his hour has not yet come, he can't really remove that curse quite yet. But even so, the party must go on, so he must do something. And so his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. Now Jesus looks back and he sees that this party is dying and that it is overcome with despair. And the first thing that he sees when he looks are 6 stone water jars used for the Jewish rites of purification. The first thing that Jesus sees when he's asked to give them new joy is he sees the way that Jews were made clean. You see, because Jesus knew the law of Moses that the Jews abided by, and in that law, there was a necessity for people to be clean in order to receive the holy blessing of the Lord. They could not participate in anything that was holy if they were unclean. And to be made clean again if they had been defiled, they had to be washed with water coming from one of these 6 stone jars. Even priests who were holy just by being priests, if they had become ceremonially unclean, they had to be washed with water before they could even take part in the workings of the temple. And so Jesus was about to give them this holy joy in the form of 20 to 30 gallons of wine, which, by the way, my Nazarene University home would never be okay with or approve of.
Okay.
Jesus was also about to clean them up. And so when the steward tasted the hudor oinon giganemenon, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves ton kalon oinon first, and then the inferior wine when the guests have become drunk. But you have kept ton kalon oinon until now." Now, if you're tracking with me, you probably know what's coming next. And if you remember that last Greek phrase that you didn't understand, if you want to say it with me now, is ton kalon oinon.
Ton kalon oinon.
The last word simply means wine. The first word means the, and so that leaves one word for us to guess what it means. And if you've read the text before, maybe you've preached it before, or maybe you've heard it preached, you have maybe an idea of what this word kalon means, and what you might think that it means, and what most translators use, is good. And now I'm just an undergrad student, so maybe this isn't my place, but in my humble opinion, translators who say that this word means good are wrong. Some of you may have heard me preach before, and if you have, you probably don't know where I'm coming from, where I'm getting this new language from. You probably never heard me use it this extensively. So you're wondering what's happened since the last time you heard me preach, and the time you hear me now, to make me use this strange, old, complex foreign language we know as Greek. Well, to settle your unrest and maybe save you the trouble of an investigation, I'll just tell you that Olivet Nazarene University is what happened. You see, I'm studying biblical studies at Olivet Nazarene University, and one of the classes they make me take is Greek, and I really don't understand why. Their reasoning says something to the effect that the New Testament was written in Greek, but I'm really not sure yet, so I just started, but I decided to take the class anyway. It was a good idea, and like most classes, this class is a textbook. And in this textbook, there are various vocabulary lists, and on one of these lists is this word, kalon. And it's on the list of words that I'm supposed to know, so you'd think that I would know the meaning. But the meaning that I know from class and the meaning that we see in the English translation of the text are 2 different meanings. You see, on my vocabulary list for class, the word kalon has an alternative, is only an alternative, only to be used when the primary definition is insufficient. And the primary definition is a word that I like much better. It's a word that maybe your 5th grade English teacher would be more proud of you using. So according to my textbook, this word kalon means beautiful. This joy which Jesus gives them in this wedding in Cana, when that was lost in its drunkenness, and they had this cloud of despair and shame in Galilee of all places, where it was said, surely nothing good can come out of Galilee. It was not just good wine. It was even better. It was beautiful wine. It was wine of such quality that just by experiencing it, it lifts the broken spirit and elicits love and adoration. By very definition, this beautiful wine brought unspeakable joy. But, hold on a second. There was another Greek phrase, maybe you thought I forgot, or maybe you forgot yourselves. And so for whoever forgot, let's just restate it again. The phrase is hudor oinon gegenemenon. We recognize the word oinon now, which means wine. And the first word, hudor, just means water. And that leaves another word that maybe has another meaning. This is a form of the word ginomai in Greek, and it occurs throughout the New Testament. But one particular place that it occurs that I thought was fascinating was John chapter 3, when Jesus and Nicodemus are talking about being reborn. And so it seems that John is saying that this water was not just made into wine, but it was reborn as wine. But you have to see here that it's not just the water that's being reborn here, or else all that we have is, in this story is a cheap trick that Jesus pulled out of his sleeve. Something akin to the cheap grace that we sell in our churches for 5 easy payments at $29.99. No. Jesus is there, so there has to be something more happening here.
Right.
Because Jesus isn't just some cheap trick. And in fact, Jesus himself is a miracle, and so you have to expect that this story would be a miracle. And so it's not just that this wine, or this water has been reborn as wine, but this wine has become the wine of their rebirth. This water of their purification has become the very wine by which they have been reborn, and their joy has been made new. And yet it's still not quite as potent as the joy in which they will see at the end of their journey when they see the fullness of his glory. See, Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. A sign points to something. Jesus promised his disciples at the beginning of the story that they would go on a journey, and at the end of the journey they would see and experience the fullness of his glory. And so along the way, the first stop, he gives them a sign by giving them new joy through rebirth. And it's not just that they have been made new, or that the water has been made newly into wine, but that their joy has been made new, pointing to a time when all of humanity would be made new, when there would be a stone rolled away, and there would be somebody who was dead just a few hours ago, walks out of that tomb, giving rebirth to all of humanity. You see, the first sign that we're on the right track to getting to the fullness of his glory is for some reason a party. And today Christianity is purposed with the task of getting that party going in the whole world. In a tweet from Saturday morning from Pope Francis, it says that he said that Christianity spreads through the joy of disciples who know that they are loved and saved. But what about the thousands dying of every day of starvation? Explain to me how they are loved if the party does not go on. Or in Detroit, where cars are both made and lived in. You tell me if the party must go on. Incarcerated somewhere is a young sinner named Saint who won't see the light of sunshine for 10 to 15 lonely, sleepless years. And I'm telling you, the party must go on. The joy of the gospel was never meant to be contained within the walls of any cathedral or Christian college or even small white church in the wooded hills of southern Indiana. No, he calls us to break through the stained glass safe houses and take this new hudor oinon gegenemenon to the world who needs most, for the looming cloud of their depravity and despair to be lifted. Yes, indeed, the party must go on.
Yes.
Amen. Amen.